lot of wealth, or brought back a lot of wealth to Europe, took lots of gold. However, this leads to these stories of wealth and kind of mythical ideas, and it's fed by other explorers as well. Alvaro Nunez Cabeza de Vaca on this wrote a book called Shipwrecked, where he claimed to have seen unicorns, and he had heard about the Siete Ciudades de Ciebola, which is what Coronado goes looking for, which is also known as El Dorado. Dorado is golden, so the golden city, and it's believed to have been made out of gold. Now, if you've seen National Treasure 2, they still talk about this myth. And this myth obviously does not exist. There wasn't a city of gold. So explorers go looking for the city of gold. Juan Ponce de Leon was looking for gold, but he was also looking for the fountain of youth. And so in this land, the Americas, you see these mythical ideas coming about. And one of them was also that Bigfoot lived in the south, and that's why the southern part of South America is called Patagonia. There's said to have been unicorns, all of these things. And so explorers keep coming and coming, and people are funding these explorers and these conquistadors, hoping that they'll come back with treasures or some miracle water that will keep them young forever. And so one other explorer who actually does find a wealthy civilization in terms of wealthy by European standards, which was gold, is Pizzaro. And Pizzaro follows kind of Cortez's model once he discovers the Incas. And so he comes across the Incas in the Andes in Peru and so forth, and he gets lucky. The Incas are in the middle of a civil war. Their father, Huayna Capac, or the Inca Huayna Capac, aka the leader, had died, and some anthropologists believe that this was a death caused by one of the diseases brought by the Europeans that had migrated south ahead of the European explorers, the conquistadors, but was still wreaking havoc on the civilizations. And so he dies, and the problem is that he leaves he tells people that he wants the empire to go to his younger son, Huáscar. But his older son, Atahualpa, is an experienced warrior and so forth, and so they fight each other, and so there's a civil war. The reason why I tell you this is because they're weakened. And when they are weakened, Pizarro comes in and he has an opportunity, and so he captures Atahualpa and claims that he's on the side of Huáscar. However, in reality, all he really wants is gold. But he throws the whole thing for a loop because he actually grabs Atahualpa and touches him, which was not a cultural thing you did. The Inca was a god. He never touched the ground. If he ever spat, if he ever went to the bathroom, all of that was collected and burned at a ceremony every year. So the people were shocked. And so when they talk about the Europeans coming as far as seeing them as gods or as these otherworldly things, part of it is that they're going so against the culture, so against what they know. So he captures Atahualpa and he demands gold, and he gets gold, and he ends up successfully conquering the Incas. However, this does not mean that the Incas just accept his rule. The Incas will, for years and years, fight, or some of them run off into the mountains, and Pizarro is not actually able to successfully conquer them. Pizarro will then move his capital to what is today Lima because of its access to the ocean. So he sets up a colony in South America, as did Cortez in Mexico in that area, and they used what's called the encomienda system. And what it was is they'd create huge, kind of almost a feudal-like system. So it's a big piece of land, and the indigenous are tied to the land. So when you acquire the land, the indigenous are attached to it. And so they have to farm, mine, ranch a certain number of hours every year, a certain number of days, things like that. But what they do is they create it into a system of perpetual slavery. In Bolivia, there's a mine in Potosí where a city develops because this mountain is said to have had so much silver that at first you didn't even have to dig for it. And so they go and they they collect the silver, but they start using the indigenous to mine, and they would keep the Incas or the Quechua, whoever they uh, got a hold of, and they would force them to stay in the mines for up to 2 weeks. And so many died. It's said that somewhere around 7 million people died in these mines. These mines are still in use today. They're still giving out minerals and so forth, just to give you an idea of how much value there was. But these indigenous who worked in them would end up being away from their family, and so then these cities, they would charge them money to eat. Well, they couldn't pay for it, or they couldn't afford the housing, things like that, so they would have to work more hours, and as they worked more hours, they would eat more, and you see how this cycle is forming. And so it was a form of slavery for them that was terrible, and millions died in these mines. It's estimated around 7 million died in these mines. So you have this problem, and along with the encomienda system comes this hierarchy, and the hierarchy in the Spanish colonies is not as race-based as you'll see it is in the British colonies. It'll be kind of this hierarchy of, if you are indigenous but you are powerful or wealthy and you are willing to sell out your fellow tribe or culture to kind of fit into the Spanish system, you're able to have a higher class. However, for the most part, it still has something to do with race. So if you're European and born in the Americas, you need less money. You have more privileges just based on how you're born and what you look like. But it's this weird whitening system. We're not going to get too in depth into it, but just know that Europeans kind of came first, then Europeans who were born in the Americas named Criollos, and then the indigenous, followed by the Africans who they brought in eventually for slaves, because the indigenous kept running away.